in a specific region and is first considered to be a saint by the people within that region and begin to become venerated. And then what will happen is that the bishop will present this individual to a synod of bishops that will discuss this person and determine whether or not that person should be canonized or not. And then if they determine that he should be, then canonized and officially declared a saint within the church. But typically, as I understand it, arises organically within an area in which the individuals feel that this individual is living an exceptionally saintly life.
Mm-hmm. I will say this. Remember when the weeping icon began to happen up in Chicago in Cicero there at St. George? They telephoned Metropolitan Philip and told him about the phenomenon. And then he dispatched Bishop Basil to go up there. This impressed me out of my mind. Do you know the first thing? You want to say something? I think it was Bishop Basil. It was Bishop Basil. Okay, but it was Bishop Basil went anyhow. What impressed me out of my mind, the first thing Bishop Basil did was an exorcism. Why? An exorcism. Why? To make dead sure that this was not a counterfeit of the devil. Boy, I like that. Rather than rushing headlong, oh boy, we got a miracle here. Instead, to go in there and withstand the devil in the name of Jesus Christ, just in case it's a fraud. And of course, it was ruled to be genuine. And yes.
To make a comment, like using your all-American football analogy, wouldn't it also be true that there are a lot of All-Americans who weren't chosen and who may have been overlooked accidentally but are just as worthy of All-American status?
Yeah, this thing is never seen as exhaustive. And, we say, well, even in confession, you're absolved for the sins that you confess and even the ones you didn't know about or forgot. And the church never sees that list of saints as static and filled, but rather just out of all, these are ones that we certainly can discern. Oh, absolutely. If you talk about myriads of myriads in heaven, there are many more.
I was given by an icon that was brought from Canada, the Holy Virgin Mary. I saw how the myrrh, it was filled with myrrh, and the bishop took the cotton and anointed my spine. The doctor said, even if we'll do operation, it's not going to help you one bone here. I had headaches and everything. Right away, I was healed after being anointed with the myrrh that came from the icon of the Virgin Mary. It was a copy just from the ancient icons that was painted by St. Luke. It came from Mount Athos. Mm-hmm. The Virgin, one Spanish man, very humble, went to Mount Athos from San Diego, Chile, and he fell in love with it. And he said, "I'll pay a lot of money." They told him, "We can't sell these icons from the church." And then before he left the monastery, the Virgin Mary told the abbot, "Give him this icon. The world outside needs this icon more than the monastery." And he brought it and lived in Canada. And it wasn't yet, the mayor wasn't coming. But then one day I said, "What did you do to have the mayor?" He said, "I just said my prayer like everybody else. One day he smelled such a beautiful perfume coming. He looked and the Virgin Mary was pouring with myrrh, oil. And they gave us a lot from this. And many other miracles happened, and I had to witness. I took many, Advil and everything. The minute I was anointed, no more.
You probably didn't all hear that in the back. Mary was just saying how she had experienced a healing of her neck through the myrrh of an icon. And that testimony is not at all unusual. At the church in Cicero, the one I'm most familiar with, there have been a number of really miraculous healings, as there were at that Albanian church a few years earlier. I believe it was St. Philip's, also in Chicago, that had a weeping icon. And the pastor there told me, he said, we were as conservative as we could be, and anyone that claimed a healing, we asked for medical verification. We got medical verification on 55 people, and many more claimed a healing. But he said we only counted the ones that were verified. So I remember when we were on our way into the church, the young priest, David Barr, who was a graduate of Oral Roberts University, said, because we were just asking him one day, well, what does the church believe about the gifts of the Holy Spirit and miracles? He said, this is the most charismatic church on the face of the earth. I says, right, David, that was before he was ordained. Right. He said, no, I'm serious. He said, and it was what Father Michael said the other day, lining up with the beam. If you just look at it, this does not look real charismatic. But I'll tell you, in it, the gifts of the Spirit and the miracles of God they permeate the life of the church. Father John?
I was going to mention in relation to our own archdiocese with Bishop Raphael Paolini, one of the procedures that has been pursued is an exhaustive study of his life.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think that would be one of the things that would be done. And although I've never heard anyone say it, so specifically this way, but I think that one of the reasons why we have held off a little bit, because that study has been done, is really just to see if anybody's going to come up with something that would contradict.
Mm-hmm.
Almost like, in the old wedding vows, Catholicism, or, if there be any man who hath just reason why this man should not be married, let him speak now.
Or ever hold a speech.
Yeah, and I think that we're kind of going through that procedure right now, Speak now, or hold your peace, because I believe that this is going to happen.
In fact, it's interesting that nobody holds Bishop Paolini in higher regard than Metropolitan Philip. And at Conciliar Press several months ago, probably a year ago, we had a manuscript on his life. And obviously, we don't go ahead and just publish anything we please. In a case like that, we ask a blessing. And we didn't get it. He said, no, hold off on it. Never gave us a reason. So what you say is right. I think we're in that phase right now of just evaluating. They did move his remains, his burial place, and his body was incorrupt. So Bishop Paolini, the bishop that came here from the Middle East at the end of last century and died, I think, around 1908 or something like that. Father?
If you remember when we were in Damascus, that they presented the first initial request of our patriarch for the canonization of Bishop Paolini. And at that point, he deferred it and said, we're not ready yet to do that. We need more evidence about his life and so forth. But the process was started. It would just take a while for it to ever reach. So.
And of course, again, for us as newcomers to the faith, we're used to everything happening yesterday. And in Orthodoxy, it just doesn't move along real quickly. And sometimes that's a frustration to people. It was frustrating to us. And thank God we waited, because he put us in the right place. And it's so easy to storm the Bastille, and it just doesn't work.
Father Peter, I'm just returning to the issue or the subject of icons. This being a missions conference, I wonder we can think of icons as being a great way to be a witness in our workplace, people that we bring into our automobile, and so on. I remember a similar story in my own life when I was on the campus of Kansas State University in the early 60s, and was approached by navigators, and as I said, my first night made a decision to commit my life to Christ. I went back that next day to my room. It was over the weekend, put down all the other pictures that were on the wall, and dug out a cross and a picture of Jesus and a Bible that my father had packed in my stuff when I went to college, and put it up in front of the mirror.
Mm-hmm.
And my roommate, who was away for the weekend, and a couple of other guys on the dorm room, came into the room, and all the pictures were gone on the walls, and here was a cross and a candle lit, and they weren't sure what was going on.
You were pre-Orthodox if you had that candle lit. See, light them. We had 2 naked candles on the communion table of Winnetka Bible Church, but they never got lit. Isn't that amazing? Yes.
Kind of an interesting interface with students. I'm sure you know Father Sam Gant, teaches Greek at Fuller Seminary. He was taking a lot of guff one day from a couple of students on the issue of icons. And Father Sam's a very gentle man, and was trying to explain icons and couldn't quite get his message across. So he went back to his office and he came back with a large icon of Christ and took it and basically placed it on the floor and said, would anybody, if this is just a picture, would you please come and step on it? And he said, after everybody white-knuckled their desks, he picked it up and he says, now you understand.
Mm-hmm.
And after that, there wasn't a word.
Let me pull it together this way, because I do want to give you a break before Father James comes. Icons are called in the church windows to heaven. They're there that we can look through them to the original and realize that we are in the presence of heaven itself. Icons don't make the Lord present, but they tell us that he is. They tell us that the saints are present, that we're not alone in this room, and that as we come to worship, we are surrounded by the hosts of heaven. Icons have also been called the gospel in color. I think they are a wonderful way to help share the gospel. Just a couple of quick illustrations. The first time Marilyn and I traveled together to Pittsburgh to be with Metropolitan Maximus, we were given an icon, and the icon had a prayer on it, on the back of it, and we didn't know what to do with it. I mean, we weren't going to throw it away, but we just didn't know what to do with it. And so we were sitting in the bulkhead row. I was on the aisle. Marilyn was in the middle, and then there was a girl next to the window. And Marilyn had said hi to her, and she just nodded, but she never said anything. And so we took off, and we're flying back, I guess, towards Chicago, and we hit a storm. And boy, that thing was just all over the sky like this. And the girl next to Marilyn grabbed her arm and held on for dear life. She was probably 20. And Marilyn again said something to her, and she didn't respond. And then she made some kind of gesture, and she was deaf. And so Marilyn said, give her the icon. So she took the icon out, turned it over, and had her read the prayer, and the girl just relaxed. And I think she still got that icon. But the icons minister to people. I wish Gail Newsom were here today. Gail is a lady in our parish. Her husband was the pastor of the Orthodox Presbyterian Church here in Goleta. And Gail's last stronghold of crisis, a struggle, was Mary. And she was in a small group that we had in our home. And one night she asked to remain behind and she said, just tell me about Mary. I can buy everything else. And I took her through every passage I could think of. And still, we didn't seem to be getting anywhere. And almost as an afterthought, I said to Gail, before you leave, would you like an icon of Mary? I said, I just remembered, someone gave me one just recently that's a duplicate of one that I already have. Could I give that to you? And so we walked back into my office, and I got it down off of the shelf and gave it to her. And I didn't even instruct her what to do with it. And I just gave it to her. And she thanked me, and they left. And the next week, probably 10 days later at church, she came up and said, I'm okay now. I said, what do you mean? She said, well, I put that up on our altar, and I began to pray with that icon there. And she said, she's the Mother of God. She's ever virgin. And there are times, and you know me, I'm a Bible guy. But there are times when what will reach them is the icon. And I would encourage you to, with discretion, pass it out in your work of witness. If you've got somebody that's named George that you're talking to, give them an icon of St. George. I had one of St. Edward. My middle name's Edward. And when Edward Fryer here in our parish, Deacon Edward, was diagnosed with cancer, guess where that icon went? Deacon Edward has it now. And I called my son who gave it to me and explained. And of course, he's all for it. So use icons discreetly in your mission work, in your evangelism work, because they reach a person at a level way beyond just the rational brain. And it's a spirit. These are spiritual images. So use them in that way. Let us, it's a little before 5. Let's just take about a 10-minute break and